on Earth. But instead, they've created this, it has to be mathematical. It has to work perfectly on our paper, on our human-created math sheet. The whole universe has to go by my math and nobody else's math. And Einstein was a genius, and he came up with this, and we're not going to change it no matter what. It's
okay, yeah.
dogmatic.
Well, you're on my side of the fence when you say all those things. I'm not arguing about those, okay?
But what I'm saying is that you're not seeing that we just have taken it a step further and said we can't just accept everything that they say. I mean, when we see, and I'm sure you're on the same page, when we see these galaxies and these nebulas and these beautiful pictures from Paint Shop, that it's a complete travesty that those pictures can only come from the telescopes of NASA. They have to go through a machine because they're not in the right wavelength that our eyes can even observe. They come out on paper. Oh, this is what is out there. You have to believe us because we're NASA. Well, if I know they're lying about that, I'm not going to accept anything they say until they start proving what they're saying, and they don't prove anything.
I agree with you, Jared. I agree with you. Remember, I started this conversation at the beginning, and I said, you asked me about NASA, and I said, yeah, you have to take everything NASA says with a grain of salt, sometimes with the whole salt cellar. So I'm on your side, okay?
Right.
We're not arguing about that. When they talk about dark matter and dark energy, this is just gobbledygook, okay? I mean, they have to have these things in order to keep the paradigm that they've established.
But they also have to have the 93 million mile sun.
And also things like stellar aberration. Once again, this is a highly theoretical and mathematical only concept that cannot be proven or even observed, for that matter.
No, the difference is that we see stellar aberration. We don't see dark matter or dark energy.
How do we see stellar aberration?
Because we see every star in the sky making a circle every year without fail.
It changes 1 degree. It changes 1 degree a day. Meaning, if I look up where the fourth star of the Little Dipper is, it'll be a degree different tomorrow, and a degree different the next day. And after a year, it comes all the way around. So what I don't get is how that's even a question, as to the entire mechanism makes it's for times and signs, right? It's for seasons. It's to tell us.
If you're going to be scientific about this, you have to explain why that occurs. You just can't say that it occurs and so be it. I'm still going to believe in my flat Earth model, but I don't have any explanation for stellar aberration. Well, you can't deal with it that way.
I guess Robert, from what you're saying about your observations about the stars and everything, maybe we're talking about a different definition of stellar aberration. Am I wrong in assuming that what the definition of stellar aberration is basically the shift of distance that would occur from the time that the light is emitted from a distant star to the time that it arrives here in our solar system and then on our planet? Am I incorrect?
No. Basically, that the limited speed of light is not going to have an effect on this, because the star is still going, no matter what speed the light goes, the star is still going to be making a circle in the sky, because it's a matter of geometry. It's not a matter of the speed of light.
Okay, and that's exactly the problem here. I mean, because everything I'm reading or I'm looking at about aberration of light or stellar aberration is telling me that there is a correction that has to be made for the time that the light is sent to the time it's received. That's in fact that's what was used to discredit Airy's failure, was it not?
Well, no. Airy's failure was something a little different than that. The water was supposed to impede the light beam coming down into the telescope, and so it would refract more. That's a different issue. What you're talking about...
That proved that the Earth doesn't spin, right?
Refract, and also to slow it down.
Well, that's what refraction is. Once it slows down, the light's going to refract. So that's a different issue. What you're talking about is relativity's attempt to explain both stellar parallax and stellar aberration, and relativity has completely failed to explain both, because it's trying to base it on the speed of light. Okay.
Well, and until we get anywhere else, how could you say things are relative if we can't go anywhere else? It's ridiculous to say that it's relative. Well, you can't tell what's spinning. It could be the Earth or it could be the sun. No, sorry, I live on the Earth. So there is no need for relativity in my mind because it's not needed when I live here. Now, if we were out gallivanting about finding water on Mars, and well, then I could see what you're saying. But what I'm saying is they've kind of passed that off as a given. It's a given that we can go and land on these other places. I mean, Saturn on a telescope is a tiny little distorted blob. Now, besides that, it gets much, much better when you start looking through NASA's telescopes. But if you're even talking about the best telescope on Earth from an astronomer, you don't see anything that tells you, oh, I can go and land on Mars. I can go and land on Neptune. I can go to Pluto and see what they sent back pictures as. So what I'm saying is they're just assuming, or kind of letting us assume, that all that stuff is possible. And then from there, yeah, you do need relativity, you need all these different things, but I just don't think they're needed, and that's where we're coming from.
Well, hold on a second. You're mixing two things here. First, relativity is one issue, and then the other issue is it possible to send up a space probe like the Voyager probe that's been out there? It's beyond the solar system now.
Yeah, like 13 billion miles.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen. I mean, the inertia that was given to the Voyager space probe is going to take it millions of miles outside the solar system. I mean, if it was launched from Earth and it never returned to Earth, that means the inertia is going to make it keep on going. It's never going to stop. Okay, so that is a fact. It is out there.
Yeah, when you say fact, though, it's almost as if you're applying fact to the things that you accept, and the things that you just don't call fact.
No, I mean, because we all know that they sent the Voyager spacecraft out into space and it's never returned.
We don't all know that. I don't say that.
Well, I think I think it's one thing to disagree with NASA's whole motivation for sending out these probes, but it's quite another thing to deny that the probes are actually out there. And I think you'll do a disservice to yourself if you go in that direction, because our quest is not to try to deny the scientific data.
It's not trying to deny anything.
Our quest is to try to show that they have the wrong interpretation of that data.
Well, I don't think that's even possible. If that spaceship is flying where they say it is, well, then everything they say about space, as far as gravity, as far as the rotations, as far as the distances, that's all correct then. They can't be interpreting that wrong. The fact is they're making it up. And where I say that from, and you can say I'm doing a discredit to myself would be how I spent the first 35 years of my life, which was simply accepting things because I'm told to accept them, that they're fact.
Right,
it's a fact
I understand that.
Did we go to the moon in your mind? In your mind, did we go to the moon ever? Have we ever been there?
Well, that's another issue, and let's just deal with the cosmological issues right here.
Well, I guess to me it makes a big difference. I mean, that's how I started this whole thing. Once I did in-depth study into that and realized, no, this is a lie. Well, then you start looking. Well, how far have we been?
And yeah, I know, but you don't know the answer to that question. Okay?
No,
you can because of your experience, and this is what I was trying to say before. The temptation for someone who does investigation and sees a conspiracy behind it and verifies it, the temptation for him now is to consider everything a conspiracy, and that's just not true.
Or just consider everything for what it is, and then address each one, kind of like that guy said at the beginning when I read, and he said it's just the way you observe the universe and the way that you evaluate evidence. And so I no longer will just accept evidence by saying, well, they must have sent the Voyager out because we saw it on TV. They said they did. Somebody's sitting at a computer and interpreting data that's coming back from it. I mean, the fact that anybody thinks that we have the technology to communicate with a spaceship 12 billion miles from Earth is crazy talk.
Well, it's not 12 billion miles from Earth. The most Voyager? It could be right now is 3 billion.
The Voyager is, I'll look that up. I think that the Voyager 1 and 2 are both, aren't they both past our solar system?
Yeah, if they are, we're not communicating with them anymore. Okay, we only communicated with it when it reached Jupiter and Saturn, I believe, and now we're just calculating where it might be, at using our Newtonian calculations. Nobody says we're
So they're not
communicating.
even communicating with it. It's not saying where it's at.
Yeah, but we already got the data that Voyager was supposed to give us. You see, it doesn't matter whether we're communicating with it now. Okay, but this gets back to that same problem I'm telling you about. Okay, you have no proof that they didn't send up Voyager, and yet your whole mentality now is to deny that Voyager sent up because you found conspiracies in all these other areas like dark matter and dark energy and all that.
It comes
That's
from
a dangerous
everything.
place to be.
I think it goes a little beyond that.
They just need to show one thing. I mean, seriously, if they would prove themselves one time by doing something that showed the humans on Earth that they're out there for our good, by exploring, the area around Earth, taking pictures of Earth, having webcams on the moon, showing us the places they landed on the moon, showing us real footage from the ISS, actually showing us footage that we with our eyes can tell is real. Anybody who looks at...
Do you drive a car, Jaron?
I do. This is a Bill Nye line.
Go ahead. Do you ever use the GPS?
I absolutely do.
Okay. So,
and
can you tell me how...
GPS has been studied many times, and at 300 base stations across the plane, it would be 1/10 as expensive as they say the satellite system that runs GPS is. And so
I'm not talking about the expense. I'm talking about how it works.
Well, what I'm saying is they could have easily stole 90% of the money that everybody put into it, and for 10% of the price, we have GPS within a meter of accuracy, and it's simply with base stations. There's no...
And GPS also it can very easily be just an advancement of a technology called LORAN, or in these days it's called eLORAN. So, I mean, most of the things are taken ground-based measurements. In fact, there's so much evidence to show that this is actually the navigation system that's actually in use that's being called GPS. It's overwhelming.
So you don't believe there's any satellites up there?
No. In fact, we believe in this case what the Bible is saying, that there is a firmament up there, and that as John 3:13 said, no man has ever ascended into heaven.
I read that in Jaron's. Not read that. I saw that in his video. Let me address that issue about the firmament.
Oh,
the firmament. I want to address that issue. The firmament, according to Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 to 9, is a substance that was made. He actually took the whole second day to make the firmament. And then the firmament separated the waters from the waters, so there were waters above the firmament and waters below. And then in verses 14 to 17 in Genesis 1, it says the firmament, it's the same Hebrew word, rakia. It says that the birds fly in the firmament, okay, and that the stars were placed in the firmament. So how could the firmament be some solid dome if the stars are placed in the firmament and the birds fly in the firmament?
Because I think if you look at other verses, Isaiah and other chapters, you will find that the description of the firmament, not only, yes, it talks about the waters above it and the waters below it, but that the sun and moon were placed within the firmament, which would kind of indicate that there is an area in between the upper and lower layers of the firmament. And there's a lot of Bible scripture that actually supports that. Furthermore,
you haven't pointed to a Bible scripture yet. You just said Isaiah. I don't know where in Isaiah you're talking about.
Okay, well, I'll pull up the scriptures, but let me also say that there have been several universities in
If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? If there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call?